Hello everyone and thanks for joining us. We're tracking a developing winter system that is going to close out the week across southern Ontario, and while this won't be a blockbuster storm, it is one that could still cause travel headaches. Especially from Friday morning into the evening commute. Snow, gusty winds, and sharply colder air are all part of this forecast, so let's break it down step by step. We begin late Thursday night, when the first signs of this system arrive. Light snow is expected to develop overnight as moisture increases ahead of an approaching low-pressure system. At this point, snowfall will be on the lighter side, but roads could start to become slick by early Friday morning, particularly on untreated surfaces. As we move into Friday morning, that is when conditions really begin to change. Snowfall will increase in intensity, especially across southwestern Ontario. This includes areas like Windsor, London, Kitchener-Waterloo, and stretching toward the western GTA. During the peak of this system, snowfall rates could reach 1 to 2 centimeters per hour at times. While that may not sound extreme, when it coincides with the morning commute, visibility can drop quickly and road conditions can deteriorate in a short amount of time. Through the late morning and into the early afternoon hours on Friday, this is the window when we expect the most impactful weather. Snow will continue to push eastward, expanding across southern and central Ontario, including the GTA. Drivers should be prepared for reduced visibility, snow-covered highways, and slower travel times. Now, one of the key features we're watching closely is a strong cold front trailing behind this system. As that cold front approaches later in the day Friday, there is the potential for a frontal snow squall to develop. These squalls can be brief but intense, producing sudden bursts of heavier snow, gusty winds, and rapidly changing conditions over a short distance. If a snow squall does develop, it could briefly reduce visibility to near zero in some areas, especially as the band of snow pushes south. This is something that drivers need to be particularly aware of, because conditions can go from manageable to dangerous very quickly. As we head into Friday evening, the main snowfall will begin to taper off from west to east. However, this does not mean the impacts are over. In fact, this is when another concern begins to take over. Behind the cold front, winds will strengthen significantly. Gusts could reach up to 60 kilometers per hour in some areas. With fresh snow on the ground and already established snowbanks along roadways, this will lead to blowing and drifting snow. Even after the snow has stopped falling, visibility issues can continue, especially on open roads and rural highways. This blowing snow can refreeze surfaces and create sudden whiteout conditions in exposed areas, making nighttime travel on Friday particularly tricky. Anyone planning to be on the roads should allow extra time and stay updated on local advisories. As colder air pours in from the north, temperatures will drop well below seasonal norms heading into the weekend. Wind chills will make it feel even colder, especially overnight and during the early morning hours. While daytime highs will remain cold, it's the nighttime temperatures that will really remind us that winter still has a firm grip on southern Ontario. Saturday and Sunday will be quieter in terms of precipitation, but the cold will linger. Any leftover moisture on roads could refreeze, creating icy patches, particularly during the morning and evening hours. If you're heading out for weekend plans, winter conditions will still be something to factor in. Looking a bit further ahead, there is some cautious optimism in the longer-range outlook. As we move toward the middle of the month, we're watching larger-scale weather patterns begin to shift. Blocking patterns across western North America appear to be breaking down, which could allow more seasonal temperatures to return to southern Ontario. This does not mean an early spring, but it does suggest a moderation compared to the deep cold we've been experiencing. Temperatures closer to seasonal averages would be a welcome change after repeated Arctic intrusions. To summarize, light snow develops late Thursday night, becoming heavier Friday morning with the highest impact during the morning and early afternoon. A cold front Friday evening could trigger a brief but intense snow squall, followed by strong winds, blowing snow, and sharply colder air for the weekend. Travel impacts are likely, especially on Friday, so staying weather-aware will be key. We are tracking a classic cross-country low that begins its journey in the Yukon. From there, it travels into the northern Prairie provinces before pushing east into Ontario, Quebec, and eventually Atlantic Canada. This system has all the hallmarks of a clipper, meaning it's fast-moving and not loaded with moisture, but it can still bring quick bursts of snow and noticeable drops in temperature. Because clipper systems don't carry a lot of moisture, snowfall amounts will generally stay on the lighter side for most areas. Still, even a light dusting can make roads slippery, especially when combined with cold temperatures and gusty winds. This is one of those setups where impacts matter more than totals. Meanwhile, the story is very different across British Columbia. Coastal areas are dealing with repeated rounds of heavy rainfall, especially along the north and central coast. Prince Rupert is right in the bullseye, where a strong atmospheric river, often described as a fire hose of moisture, is aimed directly at the region. Over the course of the week, rainfall totals could reach well over 100 millimeters, and in some spots potentially closer to 200 millimeters. These are significant amounts, and they raise concerns for localized flooding, rising rivers, and saturated ground. The darkest purples on the rainfall maps highlight just how intense this moisture feed is for the north coast. At the same time, it's important to note how sharply conditions change just a short distance away. Thanks to a strong ridge of high pressure, southern coastal British Columbia remains much drier. Vancouver and surrounding areas are largely shielded from this rain, enjoying relatively quiet and mild conditions. The interior of the province is also staying dry for the week ahead, another clear example of how powerful this ridge really is. Temperature-wise, that ridge is doing a lot of work. Vancouver reaches around 13 degrees, which is well above seasonal for this time of year. Up north in Whitehorse, temperatures hover around the freezing mark, with light snowfall at times. Calgary warms to about 15 degrees, and Medicine Hat pushes even warmer, nearing 18 degrees for Wednesday afternoon. That's a remarkable contrast when you consider what's happening farther east. As we move into the Prairies, the Clipper system starts to make its presence known. By Wednesday morning into the afternoon, light snow develops across northern Manitoba, spreading eastward as the system tracks toward Ontario. Snowfall amounts here generally range from about 5 to 15 centimeters, depending on location, with the heaviest totals expected from areas like Black Lake toward Thompson. Even with these modest totals, temperatures are sharply colder across the north. Churchill remains locked in deep winter, sitting near -22 degrees, while nearby northern communities stay well below -20 throughout the day. This sharp temperature gradient sets the stage for colder air to surge southward later in the week. As we head into Ontario and Quebec, attention turns to what this system means for travel and daily life. By Thursday evening into overnight, the Clipper pushes into northern Ontario, continuing its southeastward track. By Friday morning, it reaches southern Ontario, including Ottawa, the Golden Horseshoe, and parts of the GTA. Snowfall amounts here are expected to remain relatively light, generally in the 3 to 5 centimeter range. However, timing is key. This snow arrives during the Friday morning commute, which means slower travel, slick roads, and reduced visibility, especially on untreated surfaces. Ottawa, in particular, continues an impressive cold streak. The city is now sitting at 16 consecutive days below freezing. While that's still well short of the all-time record of 61 days set back in 1945, it speaks to how persistent this winter pattern has been. By Friday overnight, a stronger push of Arctic air slides southward behind the system. Wind chills will drop into the -30s across parts of Ontario, Quebec, and eventually Atlantic Canada. This cold air doesn't just pass through quickly either. It lingers into the weekend, keeping temperatures well below seasonal norms. Looking east, Quebec sees daytime highs around -6 for Wednesday afternoon, while Toronto sits near -5. In Newfoundland, St. John's enjoys some sunshine and a brief break from active weather, sitting near -2. This comes after an impressive snowfall event that dropped around 45 centimeters from Sunday through early Tuesday morning. Halifax also saw significant snow, around 12 centimeters, but conditions are calmer now. A lighter system moves through parts of the Maritimes Wednesday into Thursday, bringing some light snow to areas like Cape Breton and western Newfoundland. Winds remain relatively calm for the next couple of days, which is good news for cleanup efforts. However, once that colder air fully settles in, winter conditions tighten their grip once again. Overnight lows plunge, wind chills worsen, and any lingering moisture freezes quickly. This is a pattern that keeps things quiet but bitterly cold.